Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, April 13th. This is episode 58 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you, as always, for joining us. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Appreciate the support, as always. Just a little over a week away from the 2025 NFL Draft in Green Bay. So the draft talk, rumors, mock drafts, all that jazz continues to ramp up here. Finally get some answers very soon as kind of the final big checkpoint for all 32 NFL teams to continue to add to their roster before you got some of the rookie mini camps. Already some of the offseason workouts have begun, but then you'll get OTAs, mandatory mini camps. So little by little here as we enter the spring, things are really starting to ramp up in the NFL offseason. Today, lots to discuss. Cowboys get Milton. We'll get into some Derek Carr and some draft stuff. And then Jets, could they trade Breece Hall? Is that the right decision? We'll get to that as well a little bit later on. But first, DiMari, how's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Like you said, 11 days away from the draft. So kind of ready just to see what may happen. You know, mock drafts usually from experts are pretty close, but you can always
Yeah.
throw a wrench in somebody's plans. Talking about draft stuff, some kind of actually very sad news today. I don't know if you heard, but
Yeah.
Kyron Lacey passed away, I believe, Saturday morning. It was going to be a very exciting young player in the NFL, especially with how LSU receivers usually shape out in the NFL. So that was going to be exciting, but, kind of very unfortunate, very sad to see such a young kid with so much talent gone too soon. But, condolences to his family as well and all of LSU. But other than that, yeah, we have a lot to get into this week, like you said, with Breece and Milton. We're already starting to see some moving pieces or rumors or moving pieces of
Yeah.
what might kind of alter the draft a little bit. So let's get into it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the interesting parts thing about this draft is you're hearing a lot of teams just from some of the reports that there's a lot of teams out there that are trying to trade back, but there's just not a ton of teams willing to move up in this draft. So it's kind of interesting to see how that whole dynamic works eventually when we hit night one of the draft. We've already seen some trades and some rumors, but is there any more moving pieces, just draft pick wise, player wise, when the draft actually comes? Because it's kind of that interesting point where you're not seeing a ton of action, teams trying to move up, but you are seeing a lot of teams try and move back. So only time will tell. But we'll start it with the Cowboys as they traded for Joe Milton. We talked about this an episode prior to it happening, I think, or maybe two episodes, whatever, when the rumors began of Milton potentially headed to Dallas. And that's exactly what happens. Milton in a 2025 seventh round pick, 217th overall, gets dealt to Dallas. And in return, the Patriots receive a fifth round pick, both in the 2025 draft, 171st overall. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Kind of knew that Milton was going to get dealt. It was only a matter of where and really when. And it felt like after you heard some of those rumors, Dallas turned as the front runner. And it happened pretty quickly. Like the rumors came out, and maybe like a week later, a little under a week later, Milton goes to Dallas. I think it's a smart move for both sides. Dallas gets a quality young backup to develop behind Dak. And for New England, you get some value for a guy that was never going to play, right? Drake May's the answer there. They're going to build around him. Milton just sitting behind Drake May isn't going to do any good for him. It's not really going to do any good for New England. So dealing him now, getting some value for him now, letting him go to another team. Not that he's going to be able to compete now and start over Dak, but he gets another opportunity to sit behind one of the league's best quarterbacks and learn and develop. And who knows, maybe a year or two from now, he gets dealt to another team, whatever. Preseason looks good. His value continues to go up. It's a good early trade for his career as he continues along this path as a very talented passer with his arm and stuff, but still obviously has to work on a lot of other things of becoming an actual NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I'm honestly not mad at the move. I am kind of surprised though. Usually when Dallas is linked to a player, they
Yeah,
might end up in the CFL before they actually end up in
that's
Dallas.
true.
But it actually worked out. But yeah, I think you're pretty spot on. I mean, again, we both watched them at Tennessee. We both know the arm talent, the pure strength, being able to throw the ball off the flick of the wrist for 70 yards. So definitely has the components to be an NFL quarterback. Obviously, like you said, though, wasn't going to play in New England behind Drake May unless Drake May went down with an injury, but Milton wasn't going to get a shot. So right now, he does get that chance to go to Dallas. Dak can mentor him. He can learn a lot. I mean, we aren't talking about some scrub quarterback. We're talking about, like you said, it's a little biased if I say it, but one of the best quarterbacks in the league. It can be argued. I don't care who has to say what, but he definitely is. So for Milton to be able to kind of step into that and just take everything in from Dak, might get a shot. Dak has had a slight injury history. That hamstring they needed surgery on. We don't know how healthy he is actually going to be come next season, if he's going to look the same. So, for Dallas, I really do like the move instead of going to the draft and I don't want to say wasting a pick on a quarterback, but using a pick on a quarterback that you can probably use to beef up other spots on the roster. So hopefully for Milton, he does get a shot, maybe 2 to 3 years. And I think we've talked about this before about how long Dak may actually still have. So up until then, I mean, sit back, watch, learn what you can, and might be dealt eventually, might get a shot in a Cowboys uniform to be the starter. But just for now, I'm not mad at the move. The move, Cooper Rush being gone as well. It's been quite some time where you were kind of confident in who might be the next guy after Dak. Milton brings you that confidence if he learns well.
Yeah, and that's another point you make. Look, most NFL fans, most people aren't going to dive deep into the weeds of who the team's backup quarterback is, but backup quarterbacks are very important. And we've learned that in the NFL over the last couple of years, especially 2023, where you had Rodgers go down, Richardson go down. What else? You had Browns with Flacco, Minshew and Indy, obviously. There was so many others, right? I can't think of probably all of them off the top of my head. Oh, Burrow, right? He goes down. Browning had to come in. And we learned just like the importance of a backup quarterback. You see Flacco, he of course took the Browns to the playoffs. And even this past year, same situation where you saw some starters go down and backups need to step up. And for the longest time, it was Dak, really kind of a space, and then still listed on the depth chart, Will Grier. And that's not good. Like if Dak goes down at any point of the season, you can't rely on Will Grier or some scrub you pick up off waivers, or maybe you draft a guy and you rely on him. Like at least Milton still has he at least has a year under his belt of learning, and he also played last week of last season where he looked pretty good. I know it was against the Bills backups, but he completed 75% of his passes, threw a touchdown for 241 yards. You can't take that away from him. He looked good. It's still against NFL talent. So just kind of circling back, like Dak has had some injury concerns the last couple of years. Of course, going down again last year. Cooper Rush was a solid backup. He's not there anymore. You needed somebody else because you can't find yourself in a situation 6-7 games into the season, Dak goes down, even if it's not to miss the whole season, but let's say he needs to miss 3 to 4 games and the Cowboys are 5-2, you can't have a quarterback go in there that's going to sink your season. You need a guy that can go out there and let's just say 500 in over 4 weeks. I think Milton's capable of doing that if he continues to learn, continues to develop. So I guess the other aspect of it is LaShawn McCoy comes in. And I guess it's right, not too surprising coming from a former Eagle and Buffalo Bill. I would say both of those, maybe not so much Buffalo because Bill's Mafia, but Eagles fans definitely. Questionable fan base IQ, questionable fan base decisions. So I feels like it's rubbed off on LaShawn McCoy, but he said on his weekly show on Fox, which by the way, Fox anymore, there's just a lot of hot takes. You even hear just ESPN, some of these shows anymore. It's just so many hot takes that there's like no thought process behind it. So LaShawn McCoy goes out and says, Dak Prescott find a realtor because Joe Milton can play. I guess I'll just leave it to you. What was your thoughts on these comments?
LaShawn McCoy might be one of the best rage baiters I've probably ever seen in my life. It's not even hot takes. It's just rage baiting. And I don't know if the guy knows, but Dak Prescott just built a house from the ground up in the Dallas area. So I don't think he needs a realtor. I mean, I don't know. At the end of the day, you got to say what you got to say to get the views and, get the audience attention and whatnot. But Dak Prescott's not going anywhere. And now, no disrespect to Joe Milton, but if Joe Milton was supposed to be a starter in this NFL, Joe Milton would be a starter in this NFL at this current moment. and he's not. So if Sean McCoy did forget, the Dak Prescott he was talking about needs a realtor. Is also 33-8 against the division since being in the league. We haven't even hit double-digit losses. So just something to take into consideration. But no, I don't think this move, and I actually was asked this by a friend. I don't think this move was to kind of light a fire under Dak Prescott or kind of begin to show him the early exits if something doesn't work out, if he doesn't get past the second round or what the case is. This was nothing more than them just needing a backup quarterback and somebody to kind of have some confidence in if Dak does go down again. If Dak was in risk of losing his job, wouldn't have got the extension, they probably would have drafted a quarterback this year. Or at least there would have been more, hot takes or whatever you want to call it on them possibly moving up or trading for Shedeur, which did happen earlier this season, but obviously not happening. Dak is safe. Milton is just kind of insurance. Again, we need a backup quarterback we can trust. This is a young guy that was just going to collect dust and rot away in New England. Let's not go out and get him. LaShawn McCoy's an idiot. I don't know how the guy still has a show, but I mean, to each his own. But other than that, I think Dak is pretty safe in that new house he just built.
Yeah. And you make a good point. If the Cowboys were serious about replacing Dak or, I don't know, let's say setting Dak up for an exit, right? We remember all the rumors middle of the season, even early in the offseason. They probably would have maybe hired Dion and drafted Shedeur. That would have been the sign of we're bringing in the Sanders, letting them run the show. Dak, you got a year or two left. Time's up. Actually find a realtor. Joe Milton's not that. Trading for a quarterback that is worth a 7th or 5th round pick is not setting your quarterback up for an exit. It's just not. Drafting a quarterback first round, totally different story. Trading for Joe Milton, who is a 6th round pick, who played in one game last year, is not setting him up for an exit. So, yeah, LaShawn McCoy, there's some questions behind that logic. I do have a question, though, because we did talk about this, 2 weeks ago, about Dak, if he would to finish his career in Dallas. Do you feel he will? I forget. I think we discussed this, but
I think I'm firm on a no. I think it's going to get Dak. I think Dak can get to that point where he might spend his last 2 or 3 years, in a different uniform. I just don't think he does. I mean, Super Bowl or not, I just don't think he does.
Yeah, like when he's 36, 37, he gets the Jets will come riding along and say, "Oh, we'll take washed up Dak Prescott." And they'll win in 5 games, and he'll.
That time, love Dak Prescott to death. But that time, you've had an ankle injury, a broken ankle, a bad hamstring.
MetLife
hopefully,
turf now.
MetLife turf. That's just not a good spot for old washed guys with bad lower body injuries.
No. Jordan Love better get ready. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, I agree. It's stupid take from LaShawn McCoy. There's a lot of them over there at Fox that have very questionable takes. Even Colin Cowherd. It's hilarious. You've seen some of the takes like this, and they're not even takes. It's just he doesn't know some of the stuff he's talking about. He will say things. What was it? He'll just say things that just aren't true. Like he'll talk about players being on a team's roster when they're not even on the roster anymore. It's crazy.
See, I used to watch, like faithfully. I used to watch First Take every single morning, and it actually stopped after. I don't think I watched First Take all last season, if we're being honest. It actually stopped after the playoff beating of Green Bay when they came into Dallas, and stopped watching First Take, stopped watching sports debate shows, and I can just tell you that my mental health has increased by 1,000% because I'm not just listening to a bunch of rage bait and the people that clearly watch the box scores and don't actually watch the TV. So, if you're looking for stress relief in life and you're a sports fan, I suggest just stop watching those. You'll feel so much better because, like you said, they don't know what they're talking about sometimes, making up facts, not paying attention.
Nope.
And it's rage bait.
Especially when you're a Cowboys or a Lakers fan, because all they talk about every day is Cowboys Lakers. It's all they talk about. And it's just they come up with a new topic every single day. It's like
Yeah.
LeBron this, LeBron that. LeBron, right? A couple weeks ago, he was on that stretch of games where he was struggling. Like, oh, was LeBron washed? It's like, geez, it's
I'm
3
sorry.
games.
We can get to the end of this baseball season, and I don't know, the Marlins can win the World Series and probably the best season in MLB
Yeah.
history, and it's going to be how does Dak Prescott and
Yeah.
LeBron James, how's their legacies affected by what the Marlins have done? It's just
Yeah.
like, can we take a break? Is there any
Yeah.
other teams in the
It's like,
NFL or NBA?
yeah, they'll come up with a small market organization, Marlins. Is this like a heads up for LeBron and Dak to get it done with 2 big markets? It's like,
That's exactly how it would be.
like
Just no
how in the
correlation,
world?
whatever, but
It's so true. How do you go from the Miami Marlins to the Lakers and the Cowboys? And at least keep
no
it the same
correlation.
sport, you know? So, anyway, good move for the Cowboys. Bad take from LaShawn McCoy. Those are the 2 big takeaways, or just rage bait from LaShawn McCoy at this point. Moving on, though, staying in the NFC, but to another quarterback, Derek Carr doesn't look good. And I would also lead to say it doesn't look very good for the Saints right now, but it could lead to some, we'll see kind of how it all ends up playing out. But Carr's shoulder injury is nursing that injury that may require surgery. This was reported by Ian Rappaport. It could require surgery and impact his availability for the 2025 season. This kind of shakes things up a lot for New Orleans because we go into the offseason. There were some questions whether or not they would keep Derek Carr. They do, right? They restructure that contract. They keep him. So it's him and Rattler in that quarterback room, which kind of eliminated really the possibility of them going out and getting a quarterback. Maybe there was still a world where you've heard some reports that they're high on Jackson Dart. Maybe there was a world where they took a chance on him. But I think at number 9, and we talked about this a little bit ago, about just looking at their roster and all the holes that they need to fill. And maybe if they get a Tyler Warren and then get a good day 2 wide receiver, you all of a sudden can look at their roster and say, all right, they got some pieces, they got some weapons, new head coach, of course, in Kellen Moore. There's some hope there coming off of a failed, couple years with Dennis Allen. But this is interesting because now it kind of throws some complexity into their draft plans and just the quarterback room as a whole. And just from the Derek Carr perspective, it's a tough blow. It has not worked out so far in New Orleans. Last year with the injury, doesn't have many weapons around him, losing seasons. What was your thoughts on this news?
I don't know which direction the Saints should go. I mean, you don't want a guy. Let me see how I can explain this. Basically, how I'm trying to say, if Derek Carr doesn't play this year at all, I don't think he's on the roster next year.
Yeah.
So you kind of don't want a guy sitting around in the locker room, knowing that he's not going to be in that locker room come next season. But again, you look at what they kind of have, and you're just like, for Kellen Moore's sake, it's, do we want Derek Carr to stick around for leadership purposes and hope that he can return this season,
Yeah.
help completely mentor Spencer Rattler, or do you want to let Derek Carr go? And this is, just say they do take Dart at 9. Do you want to take Dart this year at 9? You get rid of Carr, maybe sometime during the season you release him. Don't know how much that dead cap is going to be, but I'm pretty sure it'd be pretty hefty. And we both know the Saints are already in cap hell as it is. But do you want Derek Carr to go? You eat up the dead money. Then you got Rattler, you got Dart, and let them two compete. And those are your future guys going for next year. And, also know a big thing that you've also always mentioned is the bring in a new coach. You have a quarterback there for maybe a year. That quarterback leaves, and it's just so difficult. And you can't really gel and understand a system that way. So that's another thing for the Saints, where Kellen Moore is there. So you kind of like, do you want Moore to only get a year of Derek Carr, and then and not even in uniform, just Derek Carr in the locker
Yeah.
room if he doesn't play. So a year of Derek Carr kind of hanging around the facilities, and then you move on. You go with Rattler. Or do you just go quarterback at 9 and you see what those two can bring. It's tough situation for the Saints, and you just mentioned it, which if the roster was a bit more complete and they had more talent,
Yeah.
makes it a lot easier. But there's so many directions they can go in 9 with pick 9. But now Carr kind of puts a wrench in those plans. So I can probably be pretty confident in saying, like, I don't know what the Saints are going to do at 9. It's kind of going to be that pick comes up and you just wait for the clock to count down and see where they go. But there's no for sure answer on what they might do or even what they should do.
Yeah. No, I mean, there was already a lot of questions there, right? Like we said, with Carr, you could go wide receiver with McMillan to round out the receiving core, Emeka Buka. Depending on who's there at 9, you can go Tyler Warren. Even with them bringing Juwan Johnson back, Tyler Warren projects as a better long-term option than Juwan Johnson. So you could still go that route. They could use some potential help along that defensive line. So do you go after a guy like Kenneth Grant, assuming Mason Graham's probably off the board? Do you go after his teammate, Jackson Dart, Shedeur, if he falls? Like, there was already a ton of questions even with Derek Carr. Now there's even more questions. And yeah, it's puts him in a tough spot because the roster is not very good. So do you want to draft a quarterback in round 1, let's say Shedeur, and then have to fill out the rest of your holes in day 2 and day 3? Because if you don't fill out the rest of the holes or those day 2, day 3 picks, which are all kind of 50-50, I guess first round as well, right? The draft's kind of a crapshoot because you really never know. But do you feel comfortable from a Saints perspective of plugging a rookie quarterback like Shedeur Sanders in this offense with, yes, Olave, but outside of that, you do have Brandon Cooks, but I mean, Rashid Shaheed, Bub Means, right? Cedric Wilson, Kevin Austin, Dante Pettis, a bunch of no names,
And
right?
just kind of going off of that, yes, with the no names, and Brandon Cooks is an older guy as well, so you're not getting peak Brandon Cooks, but you just can't swing and miss. And I know we said this a few episodes ago. There's so much talent in this draft, especially when you're looking at the receivers and you're looking at the running backs. There's no way you swing and miss. If you swing and miss, it's kind of, I'm not even going to say swing and miss, because you can draft a guy and they just don't work out, and that happens. I'm saying, if with all the talent, receiver wise, running back wise, if you don't at least draft the guy and see what the guy might bring, it's just malpractice.
Yeah.
And that goes for anybody. And I'm kind of saying the same for Dallas because we know what they kind of need. But there's just too many options for you to go with. And for the Saints, yes, kind of going to go back to my point and gel it in of kind of why I think maybe going with Rattler might be the best option, or you do draft the Dart at 9, because you have 2 young guys. If you do take a quarterback, you draft a few young guys. Kellen Moore can now gel them into what he wants them to be and what kind of system he wants them to run. So for the Saints, I mean, you mentioned a list of guys that they could go in. I think you mentioned the 2 defense guys too, but I think you got to go offense. No matter who you're plugging at that quarterback spot, I think you got to go offense. And again, load it with talent. If you strike out on a Burden or McMillan, which we think might be gone, I feel like Egbuka has not got as much traction as he was getting eventually. So he's kind of slipping down. So, hey, do you kind of go with him at 9 and just see what you can possibly work? You got 2 Ohio State guys out there in Olave and then Egbuka. Do you make that work for your quarterback? They're just in a tough spot. I really don't know what to say about the Saints, and I honestly hate the Saints anyway, so I'm not mad at it. But then again, it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's rough, but you make a good point about Emeka Buka. Kind of to go a little bit off more just to his side of things, he is not getting enough traction.
Not at all.
I did a mock draft the other day or 2 weeks ago for the Jets, like trade back edition, and traded back with the Falcons. Falcons, I think, could potentially move up for Jalen Walker. So Jets move back to 15. Emeka Buka, I feel like it's more so because it's kind of prospect fatigue. Like, he's kind of been talked about as a draft prospect for like 3 years, because He had the really good season in 2022, had over 1,000 yards. Looked like he might go in then, didn't. And in 2023, probably was going to be his last year, but it was injury-riddled season. Came back for another year. Very good season in 2024, and now he's entering the draft. So it's like 3 years. I think that's kind of why. But he's a very good receiver, very consistent, very reliable. Would be a great pickup for a team like the Saints if that's the route they decide to go. I don't know. There is this weird feeling of me that I think the Saints are going to sort of do what the Broncos did last year and like shock everybody, or even the Falcons, and draft like Jackson Dart. Because
I mean,
that's
it's
been the main team. If Dart would to go in the first round, unless if it's a trade back scenario, or maybe a team like Pittsburgh, who have the 21st pick in this draft, I believe. Maybe they go Dart, but like if we're talking about top 15, top 10, the Saints would be the team.
it's not actually crazy. I mean, it has been Dart's name has been heating up, and that's another. Well, he's one of the ones I don't understand why it's not getting more traction and more recognition. I mean, you got to remember this guy threw the ball probably 65% of the time over at Ole Miss, probably more than that. So when it comes to
Yeah.
being pro ready in terms of throwing the ball, I think he got that. But I think with how they almost kind of ran the offense, a lot of RPO and that type of stuff, they're not running that in the NFL as much as college. So it's not a lot of deep down the field type of things and teams that might scare teams. But I mean, we can't kind of look over what Dart and Trey Harris did this year. Like that was a special duo. That was probably you
Yeah.
could probably argue a top 5 duo in college this year. So kind of confused on why Dart is not getting more attention and higher on some mock drafts and draft boards and whatnot. But if the Saints do go 9, if the Saints do go Dart at 9, I don't think that's a bad idea. I honestly, it's going to surprise some folks, but watching Jackson Dart in college, I honestly think he can be a very great quarterback, obviously, once he learns, but it won't be ridiculous.
Yeah, I like Dart a lot too. I think the biggest question with Dart is just the offense that he was in at Ole Miss is a very not anywhere close to an NFL offense, a lot of predetermined reads and stuff like that. And he does struggle at times when there's pressure in his face and he has to improvise. And oftentimes you have to do a lot of that in the NFL. So I think that's the biggest thing that knocks him down. But no, I mean, he's got a very good arm. He's accurate. Very good season last year. Very good 3 years at Ole Miss after transferring away from USC. I like Dart a lot as well. And there's some that maybe this is more so just we've gotten to this point in draft talk where we're 11 days away and there is people that just want to throw stuff out there, but you've even heard Dak over Shedeur or Dart over Shedeur, which I don't know how far Shedeur is going to fall. For all we know, Shedeur could go number 2 to the Browns, and it's Cam Ward, Shedeur, top 2 quarterbacks off the board, and it's kind of what we all thought in the beginning of this all. I doubt the Browns take Shedeur, but who knows? I guess the next question, and we'll get to some more Shedeur stuff here in a second, but I guess the next question just with the Saints is, do you feel they would have to trade up for Shedeur? Let's say they won't have to trade up for Dart. He will be there at 9. In fact, they can maybe even trade back and still get him. Because I think the only other team would be the Steelers, unless if a team trades back into the first round. But I think it would be Dart. You can get him easily at 9. But is there a world where you have to trade up for Shedeur? I personally don't think so, because who's going to take him? You look at the teams in front of him, right? Let's say the Browns don't go Shedeur and the Giants. Then you're looking at a situation where it's only the Raiders, and I don't think the Raiders should get Shedeur. I think that'd be a terrible pick. You just traded for Geno Smith, and you need to surround him with weapons. I think the Raiders go Ashton Genty. I think that's what they need to do. And then the Jets at 7, it's clear they're not taking a quarterback. I would explode if they take a quarterback at 7 because this team has way too many needs. Panthers aren't, and then the Saints are there. So I think if Shedeur falls out of the top 3, he's there for the Saints taking. I doubt the Raiders take him.
I think he can fall. The only team, I know you just said you're just absolutely not, it's your Jets. That's the only other team I think
Yeah.
where it could happen. But it's again, why would it happen? Especially we're gonna get into it later. But some of the swirling rumors, you're not taking a quarterback. If
No.
what potentially could be coming out of MetLife, you're obviously not taking a quarterback.
No.
So I don't think they would have to trade up. I think 9, again, you kind of laid it out. That's again, if it goes how we think it might go and where players might land. No, I think he's at 9. He's available. You go get him.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's I don't know. And we'll get to the Jets, but and I look, I like this new regime and stuff. I like, I have confidence. I'm cautiously optimistic. I've said it to everybody. Everyone's always asking me, "Oh, what are your thoughts on the Jets?" I will say this: I will never, ever have the optimism that I had over the last 2 years. Like the last 2 years killed my optimism as Jet fan. So for now on, moving forward, even if Justin Fields turns into the generational quarterback and going into like he has a good year this year, they fall just short of maybe the playoffs, whatever. Even I'm still going to be cautiously optimistic because the last
Still the
2 years just
Jets.
killed me. Yeah, they're the Jets. But no, back to the Shedeur stuff. Like I'm just if the Jets, they just have so many needs. They have so many holes. Like, and they made it clear that they believe in Fields and they gave him, a good, solid, sizable 2-year, $40 million contract. So we'll talk about that here soon. But I think Shedeur could be there for the taking. The whole Shedeur thing interesting, and I guess we could pivot more to just Shedeur himself. Titans didn't have his work. Canceled the workout with him.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like this is probably more so the Titans have just made up their mind than more of an indictment on Shedeur. I think the Titans are taking Cam Ward, and why go through the process with Shedeur if you know what you're doing? What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, same. I think Cam Ward is locked in Tennessee. I think that's should be the obvious answer. We said it last time we were on, where we're just like, look, prospect wise, I know with the name and everything that follows, but you got to go Cam Ward if you're drafting one. So yeah, what's the point of going through the workout and that's not the guy you're taking? So I agree with it, but when you're looking from the outside in and you're seeing the reports, you're just like, and considering that Shedeur has already been kind of flagged for some, characteristic things and that type of stuff. Now you see the Titans cancel the workout, and you're just like, all right, what are we finding out? And kind of off topic, on topic, but just rewatch Draft Day. I don't know if you ever watched this on Netflix.
Yeah.
Just rewatched Draft Day like 2 days ago, and it kind of reminds me of, can't remember his last name, but Bo whatever, who was supposed to be the quarterback taken from Wisconsin, and you're kind of just like, are we getting this same thing with Shedeur? Like
Yeah.
this great talent, and they didn't go to his birthday party, so you're not going to draft him. But no, I think for Tennessee, yeah, definitely Cam Ward is the guy, should be the guy, and Shedeur still going to be top 5. At least he should. If not, hey, learn beignets, buddy, because you're going to New Orleans.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I like Cam Ward a lot. I think a lot of people, just a lot of scouts in general, have kind of just crapped all over this quarterback class like for the last couple months. And in a way, I feel like Cam Ward, similar to maybe Dart too, just hasn't got enough credit for what he did in college. Cam Ward's a really good quarterback. And I've watched a lot more Cam Ward film and just recently and really have kind of dove in a little bit more. Yes, there is some concerns, right? There is many clips of him just standing still in the pocket, which will get you killed in the NFL. But look, every quarterback's not perfect, but I think, and I can ask you too if you agree with this, but I think it's like just this quarterback class in general, everybody's hated on so much. Like this quarterback class isn't good. Next year's class. And I think even at times too, some of that's fallen on Cam Ward, where he's a consensus number 1 quarterback in this class. And I think you could even make the case if Cam Ward would have come out of next year's class, he would be right up there near the top with the way he played this past season. Maybe not over Manning if he has the year he's having, but again, that's all projections, right? We're all projecting all these guys to take big steps next year. Cam Ward's really good, and the Titans are going to get a really good player. My biggest thing with my biggest concern with the Titans, and then I don't want to just throw him under the bus, but I didn't love what I saw out of Brian Callahan in year 1. And I think you have some questions about his ability to. Now, he did have Will Levis, and it's tough. I don't know if John Madden could get anything out of Mailman, right? But he didn't. It was a terrible first year for him. He's kind of on the hot seat. If he goes out there this year and wins 4 games, all of a sudden, year 2, Cam Ward, they're finding a new coach, which is terrible for any team to have happen. So, but yeah, what was your thoughts on like Cam Ward? Do you feel he hasn't got enough praise? Because in a way, I do.
I'm going to be so honest. I mean, I remember a point in time being up to almost 2 o'clock in the morning to watch Miami and Cal play football, and that says a lot because I enjoy my sleep.
Yeah.
But it's because the Cam Ward is just that good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think again, usually when you got that one quarterback, and it again also before I even say that, it's not talking bad on Shedeur, but you always say it, and I think it always is the perfect way of saying it. If Shedeur had a different last name, if Arch had a different last name, are these guys getting that same recognition that they're getting? If Shedeur was someone else, we would be talking Cam Ward. If it's Shedeur Johnson, we're not talking about Shedeur as much as we are.
No, if it was Jackson Sanders and Shedeur Dart, it's totally different.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think with Cam Ward, look, this is probably the best quarterback University of Miami has ever had. And you got the concerns, obviously. And then I know some people aren't happy with the Pop-Tart Bowl, him sitting out at halftime and whatnot. But if I'm just being so honest, I really think if we're ranking it like you got Cam here, it's Shedeur here, Dart under it, and everybody else. And that is why the quarterback class is so talked about so badly, because Cam Ward is just so good. And you can say Shedeur as well. Both of those guys are just so good. Everyone else kind of just looks like, hey, whatever. I mean, so we forget Jalen Milroe's in this class, and he was a Heisman, a potential Heisman finalist for coming into the season at least. And we forget that he's available. And Dylan Gabriel and some of these guys that were really good in college, and they kind of just fell off the face of the earth just because these other two were so good. But, I mean, I think Cam Ward is going to be very great. I hate that it's in Tennessee because, like you said, with everything over there and the coaching, it's just no upside for the Tennessee Titans right now. The roster is not even that bad. But, I mean, Cam needs more respect. He is great. When I'm up watching Cal football at 2 o'clock in the morning against Miami, you're doing something right. And Cam deserves that respect.
And I will also say this, and who knows what Cam Ward develops into. And maybe this kind of contracts what I just said a couple minutes ago about Callahan and developing him. But Cam Ward walks into that building day one without even putting official pen to paper and without even throwing a single pass or without even getting his helmet fitted. He walks into that building and he is already a massive upgrade over what they were dealing with last year. So you talk about the roster, and it is the Titans. You do have some concerns, but they, like Cam Ward, I don't know if some people too maybe realize how bad. I think actually everybody knows. Will Levis was so terrible. He was awful. He was so bad. So
that it just now angry fantasy owner. I mean, just the whole coaching staff down at Will Levis is terrible. I can't tell you how many times I've watched Tony Pollard run the ball all the way down the field, get to the 10 yards, either be taken out of the game or for them to throw the ball 4 straight times on the goal line. Like, it is, first of all, you got Will Levis, and then Callahan. I don't know. It reminds me of Arthur Smith a lot. It's just like, what are we doing? It's like you're playing Madden or NCAA, and you get all the way down the field doing the one thing, and you just pick one of the random 3 plays at the box. Square. Let's go square X or circle. Let's just say what it works out. And that's the Tennessee Titans. And it doesn't help, again, when Will Levis is your quarterback.
No, it doesn't. 12 picks last year, 13 touchdowns. It's kind of funny. Some people, there was a little bit of hope for Levis because he didn't look that bad in his first year. He looked okay. And then last year was just terrible. So
the only thing he did good last year was give us a plethora of memes from week 1 through 6. That basically was it.
It started week 1. when he let the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams threw for what, 91 yards in that game?
The
Win a
Bears did not
football game.
score a touchdown on
Yep.
offense that game.
Yeah. It was just Will Levis and the Titans throwing tots to the other team.
Yep.
They might have to check Will Levis. Does he know that does he know that he's like supposed to throw the ball to his team? Maybe he's
I
just
don't know if
got the
they
rules all wrong.
or they don't do colorblind tests at the
Maybe they
combine
don't do
or
colorblind
pro
tests.
days. That could be a thing we probably need to implement is
Yeah.
colorblindness test and confusion, those type of things.
You make a good point because everyone wants to talk about the 40 and your arm strength, but can you tell the difference between light blue and orange?
Exactly. That's important because I mean you can't see and you're in the Oilers throwbacks for some reason and Denver
Yeah.
comes in with their throwbacks and you're just like you don't know. I don't know if you know the J.R. Smith meme I'm about to reference, but the J.R. Smith meme where he's on the scoreboard, eye squinted, doesn't know what he's looking at.
Oh yeah.
That's gonna be a big problem when you're dropping back to throw the ball. So Jameis can tell you that. His famous 30 for 30. He can definitely tell you that.
Definitely.
Love Jameis.
Jameis Winston, Giants legend already. You see
Love
his press
Jameis.
conference?
I did, and I seen him throwing a football to like a crab leg or something. You just can't make this up.
I saw that at crab leg. He's just so goofy. Like even his press conference, he was sitting there with like that big like smile on his face, and he's like, "I'm so happy to be a New York Giant." It's like, oh my, he's so corny.
Jameis is that one guy you hate to be in class with in school because if you look over and look at like you're gonna start laughing and get sits in the principal's office. It's Jameis Winston for you.
Yeah, 100%. He's also. You think he's the guy that like would sell the group project?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like
absolutely.
late, almost like in Tampa. Like he'll do a ton of. This is how it would go. He'll do a ton of work. He'll do all the work, and then he'll forget to press turn in. Like he'll throw 4 touchdowns and then throw 3 picks.
That is the perfect way to describe Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want a class with Jameis. I mean, I like it would be cool, I think, to sit with Jameis at lunch because that's the time, you could laugh and all that stuff. But he'd be the one do all the work and forget to hit turn in, and they get a 0.
Sounds about right. Sounds about Jameis like.
Yeah. And that is why we're the backup to Russell Wilson on the New York Giants.
For now. Backup for now. Until after the bye week.
Yeah.
Where Giants country has done it right in, and they're just like, you know what?
All in Jameis.
All in Jameis.
What a storyline that would be. Giants are like 0-6 with Russ. Jameis comes in. Oh, jeez. There is a chance that the Giants are exactly what the Browns were last year, right? Like Russ plays terrible. Watson was playing terrible. Winston comes in, has some meme on some Thursday night game. They win a game, and then they just lose the rest of the way.
I mean,
that happens.
You can also say there were some games, and we said it last time. There were some games where Jameis looked absolutely terrible, but I'll never forget that Thursday night where I'm actually up watching the Broncos and the Browns.
I know.
Go at it. It was almost like that Chiefs-Rams game from
Yeah.
Can't remember the year.
That was 2018.
I want to say 18 or 19.
Yeah, that was
one of those
Mahomes.
Years.
That was the year Rams Patriots, that terrible Super Bowl. What, 13-3?
Yeah, that was mustard ketchup color rush game.
Yeah,
if I'm correct.
That was crazy. That was the Jared Goff year at the Coliseum.
Up watching Jameis, and I know it's a little off track or whatever, but we always go through the schedule and we look like, oh, this Thursday night game is going to be awful. I'm going to go to sleep.
I'm excited to do that again.
And that was one of those games, but that game was a NFL classic, and I would rewatch it if I could. Yeah,
no, it's one of those. There's a lot of random games out there that I'll go and rewatch. There's some good ones. Just random like week 6 games of like 2018 that you go back and rewatch and like, man, this was legendary. The best is kind of like the nostalgic games where you'll go back and watch a game from like 2015 and you'll be like, man, none of these guys are even in the league anymore. I know 2015 is not going back that far, but for at least my age, it's like, it's kind of crazy to think.
Just amongst that, I can't tell you how many times I probably went back and watched that Dallas Pittsburgh game, Dak and Zeke's rookie year, them going
Yep.
into
In
Pittsburgh,
Pittsburgh, yeah.
and you look at that roster, and you look at rosters on both sides, and you're just like, nobody's still here.
No.
This is insane. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it was funny. I was watching like a couple months ago. I was watching Jaguars Steelers divisional round when the Jaguars won, obviously moved on to New England. And you're just looking at that Jaguars roster, and it's like Allen Hurns, Blake Bortles, and the Steelers, you still have the Killer Bees. It was so
Miles
funny.
Jack
It's
also on
just
that
like,
team.
wow.
I
Yeah,
think
Miles
Miles
Jack
Jack.
was
Yeah,
on that
Miles
team.
Jack on that team.
Leonard Fournette was like in his prime.
Yes.
That was like prime. That was
Yes.
playoff Lenny. Yeah, it's funny looking back on those rosters. And then even too, just seeing some of the, like, you'll go back and watch some of these old games and you'll see like the rookies on those teams. And now those guys are like entering their like 8th and 9th years.
Yeah.
And it's wild. It's like, where'd the time go? Yeah, it's fun to go back and rewatch some of the old ones. But
definitely.
Anyway, so we can move on. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what all happens with Saints, Shedeur, all that good stuff. Titans. Anytime you take a quarterback high, it's always a risk, but you always have that high reward of them panning out. Now to the Jets here to kind of wrap things up. Rich Cimini, a couple weeks ago, or about a week ago now, released an article on Breece Hall. And this, I guess there's kind of a timeline to all of this. Aaron Glenn at the annual NFL League meetings, owners meetings, talked about how, he believes in all 3 running backs in the Jets room, and that it's going to kind of be a running back by committee. And that stirred up a ton of, especially with the New York media, they'll take, especially this time of year where there's not a whole lot going on in the NFL world, they'll take one little clip, they'll take one little word quote, and they'll turn it into a massive story. And that's kind of what happened. That quote came out from Aaron Glenn. And then the rest of the week, it was like, oh, the Jets don't love Breece Hall, or, oh, the Jets are not going to use Breece Hall that much. It's going to be running back by committee, which to me, I don't buy into any of that. And I have some numbers to back it up that I'll share here in a little bit. I think Aaron Glenn was more so talking about how the Lions use their running back room with Tanner Engstrand in that background and how they can implement that with the Jets running back room, because the Jets running back room has been a pathetic joke the last 2 years. And they haven't used it enough. And when they do use it, it's Breece Hall and nobody else. And that can't happen. They do have to start to spread the ball around more. Then Rich Cimini comes out and says there could be a possibility where, do the Jets trade Breece Hall if they love Ashton Genty and take Genty at 7? And I want to preface this by saying, I really like Ashton Genty. He is a very good prospect. He is arguably one of the best players in this draft. Forget position, whatever. Talk about talent. He is one of the best players in this draft. But the Jets cannot do that. I am not on board at all with trading Breece Hall. I get the aspect of trading him so you can get value because you're probably not going to re-sign him. But personally, I think in a better situation, or a better situation, in my opinion, would be let Breece Hall, let's see what he looks like in this offense under Tanner Engstrand with a run-first offense, because last year it wasn't run-first, especially towards the end of the season. It was, let's see if Aaron Rodgers can get his 500 touchdown to Davante Adams, and it was 12 targets to Davante Adams and 3 to Garrett Wilson and the rest of the team, and no opportunities to Breece Hall. Breece Hall didn't have one game last year where he had over 20 carries. I don't know if there's another NFL team out there with a legitimate number 1 Breece Hall, with the number 1 running back with the talent of Breece Hall, a guy who we know can make plays, who didn't have over 20 carries. And I get Breece Hall hasn't looked that good, or as good as he did his first 2 seasons last year. I agree. There were some plays where it looked like his vision was a bit off, where he missed some holes. There were some plays where he just didn't seem like he had the same burst. I get all that, but I think that was more of a result of the offense was so bad. It was very predictable. And I think ideally the Jets come in here and are able to kind of take a little bit of what Baltimore does with the RPOs and stuff like that with Fields, and take a little bit of what Detroit does. And hopefully you could see a better, better performance from Breece. But I think there's more of a world where you let Breece go out there, see what he can do. And then if anything, you deal them at the deadline. I'm just not on board with trading away a good player. Like maybe Breece isn't elite. Maybe Breece isn't exactly who he thought he was when he had the 62-yard touchdown against Denver's rookie year, or last year where with the worst offense, or 2 years ago rather, with the worst offensive line in football, he was 6 yards short of 1,000 yards when every play teams were stacking the box and knew the ball was going to him. But he's still a good player. And this team has so many needs: wide receiver, tight end, right tackle, safety, defensive line. I'm not on board with trading away Breece, creating another hole to then take Ashton Genty at number 7. And then what? You still need a wide receiver, a tight end, a right tackle, defensive line, safety, maybe even another linebacker, because Quincy Williams with Jamin Sherwood's contract, who knows how that's all going to play out with him. I don't know if he's going to hold out, but he might want to raise, and he's a free agent at the end of this year. So there's no guarantees even back next year. Are the Jets going to want to give 2 linebackers 2 big 3-year deals that are at the top of the market when they have to spread the money around to Sauce and guys and Garrett and guys like that? So sorry, I'll let you talk because I kind of just went on a rant there, but I just don't. I'm not on board with this at all. Why create another hole to then take Ashton Genty, and you still have all these other holes? You need to start filling holes. You need to start finding talent on this team. The reality of the situation is with the New York Jets, Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, with the way they approach free agency, they need to find at least 3 starters in this draft. With their first 3 picks, if they don't come away with 3 starters, it's a huge miss because they need 3 starters. They need another starter next to Garrett. They need another starting safety. They need another starting defensive lineman. They need a starting tight end. Trading away Breece and creating a hole and then filling it and not filling any of those other holes on day one. It just, no. It's so stupid, in my opinion.
Oh, you're going to hate what I have to say because I hope they trade Breece because I have seen rumors of a 3rd and a 6th from Dallas to the Jets for Breece, and I just picture, I don't know what, I think I'm going to Thanksgiving this year. I just picture, being at AT&T Stadium and watching Breece break in one for like 60. And I was just like, I haven't had that in so long. But,
yeah,
like I've said multiple times, there's a lot of talent. You can fill a lot of holes in a lot of different rounds of this draft. But from that aside, obviously me seeing that rumor of Dallas trading for him, yeah, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I mean, if I'm looking at the numbers right, I think I've seen Breece hasn't had 1,000 yards yet in his career,
no.
but first year
What of his
injury, of
rookie
course.
year if he didn't
Yeah,
tear his ACL?
injury, and he was 6 yards short in year 2.
Yep.
And then last year, I mean, I think you kind of said it perfectly where, and I kind of didn't think about that until you just mentioned it. It kind of felt like it got to the point where it was less about winning football games through the hands of whoever is hot that week and more about career accomplishments and achievements for Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, because that's what the media would love. And Rodgers would be on Pat McAfee the next day talking about it. Like the Jets' focus shifted away from winning football games and doing that with one of their best players to the arm of Aaron Rodgers. And that's why the season kind of went how it went. Personally, I don't think Breece has even reached his max potential. Because, I mean, you look at, if you just think about it, from that first year, then the ACL tear, and then even him being as ready as he was in year 2 and to look as good as he did in year 2 post ACL, it's hard for a lot of guys to bounce back. And Breece looked great, and teams were stacking the box, and he still fell just short of 1,000 yards. And I've said this before, where 1,000 yards also isn't everything, and 1,000 yards doesn't mean anything. Anyone can get 1,000 yards in today's NFL. Any running back, the decent offensive line can get 1,000 yards with a decent line. But Breece adds so much more than just being a 1,000-yard back. Like, he is a very good talent. And again, I don't think he has reached his max potential. And now this year you got Justin Fields over there, who's very deadly with his legs as well. I think that opens up a lot more for Breece because now teams have to worry about that second option of Fields. And you throw Braylon Allen in there. You want to go a Fields, Allen, Breece type of backfield. Like, there's so many things that you can possibly do and go from, with that combo. And the Genty thing, I agree. It doesn't make sense. Why, you have a very good running back who has not shown any signs of digression, or if you want to say, well, he doesn't look great. Yeah, when Aaron Rodgers is throwing the ball 46 times a game and he's trying to get, receive his accomplishments, yeah, the running back's not going to touch the ball that much. So it's not on Breece looking bad. It was more about Rodgers kind of completely overshadowing that offense with his arm. So I don't think Breece has reached that max potential. And I think with Fields over there and, them looking to run the ball a lot more, I think we are going to see probably 1,400 yards from Breece. And that might sound like a lot, but if you watch this guy, again, college is college. If you watch this guy at Iowa State, you know what he can do running the ball. You know what he brings. And he can bring that to the Jets. He just has had the potential. So Genty is obviously generational. He's great, but it just doesn't make no sense. And I'm on the same page with you where you can, address so many other positions at 7. Why swap a running back, go get a new running back, and then not even completely address
You're just
what
creating
you need
another
at 7?
hole for no reason.
Exactly. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I totally agree with a lot of the points you make there. And I'll even, just throw on this. Like, I get last year, he did have the 6 fumbles, and I get the yards per carry were down at his lowest point in his career. But do we also realize too, like, and it's crazy that some Jet fans just seem to forget this, the coaching staff was horrific the last 2 years. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett, I always go back to this, in 2023 after the Giants game, literally said he did not know Breece Hall was a threat as a receiver out of the backfield. He didn't know a strength of one of his own players, which is just crazy. And then even last year, the Jets had one game where they gave Breece Hall 18 carries. And what did he do in that game? He had 113 yards. He also added on 5 catches for 56 yards. So you're talking about a guy that 169 yards from the line of scrimmage on 23 attempts overall. And I get
that
that.
sounds like.
What?
Sorry, I didn't want to cut. Didn't mean to cut you off. I'm gonna say it sounds very Jahmyr Gibbs like.
Yeah, it does. And I get in that game, he did have that one play where he had it was that huge 42-yard run, and it looked like he kind of gave up at the end and didn't score. He should have cut back upfield, made Taylor Rapp miss and score. He didn't. He kind of just ran out of bounds. So I get there is some criticism, but come on. The guy had 113 yards. The Jets didn't lose that game because of Breece Hall. They lost that game because Greg Zuerlein thought that you're supposed to kick it outside of the uprights as opposed to inside the uprights. And you had that was the whole Mike Williams, Aaron Rodgers red line, right? That game where whatever. I'm not going to go down that road. But there was a lot of other reasons the Jets lost that football game. It wasn't because Breece Hall didn't score on that 42-yard run that he had. He had it, and after that game, the reason I bring that up, he had 18 carries. What did he have the next week? 12. He also had a touchdown early in that game. That was that Steelers game where they fell apart. And then 16, 15, 10, 16, 12, 9, 14, 10, 12. Like, his carries only decreased. Let's see what he can do in an actual offense with an actual coaching staff that knows how to use him. And I think that is something else I want to bring up is I think Aaron Glenn's quote to me was more so trying to show that they're going to use this running back room a little bit more like the Lions. And, there's a lot of people, when I tell people, they're like, people ask like, oh, the Jets offense, like, what are your expectations? And I always tell people like, I hope that they can kind of mix in what Baltimore does and then what Detroit does. Mm-hmm. And you see the look on some people's eyes. They're like, they're not going to be the Baltimore Ravens offense. They're not going to be Detroit Lions. I'm like, no, they're not going to be that. They're not going to be that high of execution. Justin Fields and Breece Hall are not going to be Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, but you're going to see a lot of similar plays with those RPOs. Fields taking it and running at some points. Breece Hall, running it at some point. And then from a Lions perspective, I want to see more of a 1-2 punch from Breece and Braylon Allen like Gibbs and Montgomery. Are they going to be as good as Gibbs and Montgomery? No, but it's going to be that similar look. And that's just what I want to say is like when I say that the Jets are going to kind of have that formula of Baltimore, Detroit, they're not going to be as good as those teams. In a perfect world, they are, but they're not because they're just Justin Fields, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen are not Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Lamar Jackson, or Derrick Henry. They're just not those
But
guys.
it makes perfect sense where, hey, we want our read option game to be very
Yeah.
effective, like it is with Baltimore. We want to be able to run the ball downhill a lot, like Baltimore. And then when you look at the Lions side of things, in Baltimore, it was always Lamar and Derrick Henry. You had some Justice Hill here and there, not too much more of a receiving back. But when you look at the Lions aspect of it, it's just like, yes, you want that 1-2 punch with Braylon Allen and Breece. You kind of want to ride the hot hand. And I know that's going to, as a fantasy player myself, you kind of get upset when your guy is just not having it that day. But you want to ride the hot hand. If that's Braylon Allen that day, that's Braylon Allen that day. That's what you go with. But you also want to be able to run the play action as successful as the Lions are running with Jared Goff with Justin Fields, because guess what? That 1-2 punch has been so effective all game. Now we can start throwing the ball downfield. We can get the play action. Garrett Wilson can kind of, I don't know what other option they got, but if they can find their version of Amon Ra, a guy that can kill the middle of the field, find the open spots for Fields, that offense would be very good. So, I mean, I don't think it took a rocket scientist or Einstein to understand what you were saying by that, but like it makes perfect sense. I see where you're coming from, and honestly, I kind of think that's the only way the Jets' offense is successful. It has to be ran like that this year.
Yeah. And I want to just throw this stat out here, and then we can kind of wrap things up. And I'll try and keep this as simple as possible because it's probably better actually if I just threw it up on screen. But I figured, let me just throw this out here. So the Jets rushing offense in 2024 was 31st in yards, 31st in yards per game, 32nd in attempts. The Lions rushing offense was 6th in yards, 6th in yards per game, 3rd in attempts. The reason I bring that up is, right, when Aaron Glenn mentioned the whole, they're going to use all the backs, including Isaiah Davis. I think that more emulates, right, what they were doing with Gibbs and Montgomery. And the reason I bring that up is, so in 2023, the Jets ran the ball 388 times. Breece Hall had 223 of those 388 carries. That was 57.4% of the team's carries. Dalvin Cook was the second leading, which that's just sad to say, but he was the second most carries on the team. He had 67. That was 17.2%. So you see the drop off there from Breece at 57.4 to Dalvin Cook. And in last year, 363 carries as a team. Breece had 209, which was 55 or 57.5%. Braylon Allen had 92, which was 25.3%. Another huge drop off. Now you look at the Lions. I think this is where it's interesting. Jahmyr Gibbs had more carries than Breece Hall, but he only had 46.8% of the team's carries, because then behind him was David Montgomery with 34.6%, much closer than what the Jets were dealing with. And even the year before that, Montgomery actually had more than Gibbs, but Gibbs, of course, was a rookie. The reason I bring that up is Gibbs had more carries, but it was more of a balanced attack because David Montgomery also got more looks, and they just ran the ball a lot more. Because Gibbs finished tied for 11th in carries, 5th in touchdowns, and tied for 1st with those 16 touchdowns. He was still very effective. So I think this whole notion that like the Jets are just going to bury Breece Hall is actually the opposite. They're going to use him more, but they're also going to use Braylon Allen more. I mean, how many times the Jets last year in 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 situations didn't give the ball to Braylon Allen? That's exactly the spot he should be put in. So I think you're looking at Breece with more carries, but also more carries for Braylon Allen and a more balanced attack where it's not 57, 60% to Breece and 20% to the other guy. It's more of that 48 to 34, 45, 35, whatever, if that makes sense. So that's the way I view it.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to get one dimensional either, where you kind of know. And I say this because with the Lions, you don't know. I mean, we don't know if Montgomery is going to come out the backfield as a pass catcher, if Gibbs is going to come out the backfield as a pass catcher, and kind of back to Baltimore. When Justice Hill was in the game, you knew they were throwing the ball. So you don't want to get one dimensional. You want to use them both as much as possible and not, okay, Braylon Allen's down here in the red zone, we're running the ball. You want to be able to keep the defense on their toes, use both guys, even three guys in multiple different ways, And we seen it from Cincy too for a little bit before Zach Moss went down, how they were using both Brown and Moss very successfully. And I mean, I think that is how you're going to be successful in this league. You have to have a 1-2 punch. Not saying they have to obviously be Gibbs and Montgomery, but if you don't have that 1-2 punch and you have your one-dimensional offense where one guy is getting 57% of the carries, like you just said, and then even then he still is not even touching the ball that much. That's kind of the problem. But I think that offense changes under Glenn, and the Jets become exciting to watch again. Hopefully,
I hope you're right. So anyway, that'll do it. Any other closing thoughts?
Next week we'll be able to test our draft knowledge, really. So make sure to tune in next week. It's going to be very exciting. But that's it for me.
Yeah. Yes, tune in next week. We'll have our full mock draft. First round, all 32 picks. See what happens. And then after that, we'll be recapping the draft. So stay tuned. Draft coverage next week, week after, many weeks. And it's crazy. It's going to be May. It's going to be May. And we're going to get to that point where mini camps start up for rookies, and you'll get some of the OTAs probably more mid to late May, and you'll have mandatory mini camp in June. So, and then you're going to have that 40-day period between training camp. So it's getting to the point here where we're not back, but we're getting closer to feeling like we're almost back. It's already crazy. It's mid-April. So anyway, that'll do it. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you as always for tuning in. And talk to you next week.